Next slide. Right before we conducted the fight, we had a little chariot race, and we had these people coming around our camps scrapping, and they used these little wagons, and I'm sure Sergeant Workman may have seen some of these things with these horses that had their ribs sticking through, and mules, etc. And they were, as much as they were scrapping around us, they were also collecting on us. And we would normally warn them the first time. We'd take a photo of them and then tell them that if they came back again, we'd confiscate their horse and cart. And sure enough, they did on occasion, and we developed a small stable, and the four fed them. I had a young kid from Kentucky, no kidding, who was the stable master, and Corporal Marshall, and these horses never had it so good. We fattened them up, and we had the men dressed up, and we had a big chariot race, the first annual Ben-Hur Memorial Chariot Race, and MWR softball bat that never got used for anything else with 5.56 bullets on it, and that's Corporal Nickel, Sergeant Barbosa here up front, and just a couple of minutes before we went in for the personal and professional tests of our lives, we just relaxed just for a minute, and I can't tell you how important that is because we knew it was going to be a rough one, and it was. But just for a few minutes, we got the entire battalion together. We had a prayer. We had the national anthem. Chaplain gave an incredible prayer. We said a few words, and we had the chariot race. And some of those darn horses didn't want to go. They had a taste of liberty being off there. Basically, when they hitch these horses up, they stay hitched for their entire lives. They keep the bit and the whole harness on, and they keep them chained up to those carts for their entire lives. This was the first time they got to run around a little corral we made for them, and they didn't want to get hitched back up again once we gave them freedom. The rest of the slideshow will go very quickly. If you want to flash a few more slides here. There you go. Can you go back one slide real quick? Staff Sergeant Mortimer was wounded 3 times in combat. Lance Corporal Nickel was in the Hell House, which some of you may be aware of in the Brad Castle story. Nickel's from Northern California. He lost his leg in combat in this house, very badly shot up. He and the then First Sergeant Castle had to clear an open danger space in a house, and both of them took a number of AK rounds. He was hit in the spine, in the ribs, 4 rounds in his leg, and 1 in his lower abdomen, 8, I believe, in his body. And they threw grenades into this room, and the First Sergeant covered him with his own body and protected him, and used his own first aid kit first on Nickel. And we didn't think Nickel was going to make it, but he did. And he right last time I saw him, his granddad had loaned him a Jaguar, and he came hopping up with his prosthetic leg. You never would have known. He went right up to the second deck to my office, and shook hands. And he's really doing great. So, can you flash through? If you go back one more, I'm sorry, and I promise I'll let you go. We'll get through these. There's one of the recalcitrant horses over there, uncooperative. He's turning around. They had to use their, the tridents to keep these horses from biting them and everything else. Okay, keep going. The prayer I talked about. I'm going to ask you just to go ahead and push through. The light armored reconnaissance. Go back one slide. Regiment cleared this peninsula first. And then we moved into attack positions up in the north. Sergeant Workman's battalion's up there in the northwest. We're paired up with 2-7 Cav right there in the center. And then we had the 7th Marine Regiment with 2 Marine infantry battalions and another Army Cav, 2-2 up there to the east. These other units came in and established blocking positions to cordon the city off, something we learned from the first go-round, not to allow anyone to get out of there once we closed the door on them. Next slide. basically, yes, better. This is a better slide. We had big armor penetrations in the north of the city, big mailed fist Army Cav battalions, Bradleys with chain guns and M1 tanks, tremendous armored punch in the dark hours of darkness. We brought Air Force AC-130 gunships, and it was an incredible light show because the enemy in the city elected to respond, and they lost every engagement with the Air Force up there. We also fired quite a bit of artillery on them, and VT, time fuses to clear rooftops. This was a very effective method all the way throughout. When we ran into problems that we just couldn't clear, we just put a precision-guided bomb and dropped the building or brought a bulldozer up and some form of attack to drop the structure. These are just a couple of pictures characterizing the fighting in the houses. It was house to house. There were thousands of houses in that city, and thousands of rooms that these men like the men sitting next to me, had to clear one after another. And you never knew who was behind the door in the next room. And these people were, this is when we had homes that we just had people inside that would not come out, backed off, cordoned it, and dropped the building on top of them. We used UAVs. We had these little airplanes with cameras on them, and we're able to deconflict. Next picture. We could deconflict and know where friendly units were. We could also see where bad guys were coming or trying to reinforce. We could strike them with aviation fires overhead or position friendly units to block their escape. You know, it's an incredible thing to have your own responsive camera that you can fly around anywhere you want and direct precision fires. Keep going, please. As we cleared to the south, in the southern part of the city, it became a bit more open. That was part of our intention. We wanted to get through the dense areas up in the north part of the city, the older sections, quickly, and then expose them to our combined arms fires in the south. That you see there. Also, the highest concentration of foreign fighters was down in the south. They had removed the local population and occupied and fortified it over the months prior to our assault. The houses down there, some of them were rigged to explode on top of themselves. They waited till men came in, and they blew these things down on top of themselves in several instances where we lost people. You know, reminded me of the stories from our World War II men out in the Pacific of the Japanese who refused to surrender in these caves and bunkers, tombs, etc. A few more pictures. I think we're about done. Keep going. I think I already talked about it. A lot of close-up fighting in that house that Castle and Nickel came in, for example. Another man, Sergeant Mitchell, who had to run through fire to pull people out. He was wounded 4 times in Iraq. I sent him home after 4 Purple Hearts, told him he had done more than enough for his country. Mitchell, in a room to get to Nickel and Castle, had his weapon destroyed as he ran through that danger space, and an insurgent that First Sergeant had shot inside this room wasn't as dead as they thought he was, and came to life when Mitchell came into the room. He had been playing possum or something like this, and Mitchell had to use his fighting knife to finish him. You know, close combat at its very closest, and that's what Sergeant Workman will, I'm sure, speak a little about. Keep going, please. Keep going. That's Nickel, a picture of Alex Nickel. Keep going. Bulldozers. I heard some men from the Iwo in the past. Iwo Jima, the bulldozer was one of the blade tanks were one of the most effective pieces of gear we had. Well, out there, I knew the name of every bulldozer in the 1st Marine Division. They had some great names: Hell's Hounds, Blitzkrieg, Earth Pig, and we